Probably just either not really having great relationships with my family is probably the root. Um, and maybe from my mother, uh, because it's either her way or no way, and that's kind of where I got there from.
I am Renee Greer. I'm a psychotherapist in Texas, where I run a private practice where I primarily focus on relationship and men's issues. I'm also pursuing my PhD, where I'm studying relationships in the Black community. Today, I thought it'd be beneficial for the listeners to hear a conversation when a couple is in struggle. What does it sound like? So today, we'll be working with who we have named as Derek and Kennedy. This is not their real names. We will not be using their real names. But we want to talk about when a couple is in struggle. So these guys have said they would be very candid and really give us a peek into what it looks like when a couple is in struggle. So I want to start with you, Derek. So you were saying that you guys met on some type of social media platform, and the topic of this particular platform was relationships, and then Kennedy was a part of the room. And
yes.
And how did what made you guys connect or start talking?
Well, someone asked the question about long distance relationships. I polled the room to get a consensus on, yay or nay, if, who was for it and the reason why or why not. And when it got to me, I said, hell no, I'm not for it because, like my love language is touch, and I can't touch you if you're way over there. So yeah. And when she heard that, I guess that was like, the gunshot for the track initiation. She just went in, and I guess that was her challenge moment, and she just went in on me.
Kennedy, this was a challenge for you. Like he says, no, I don't do the long distance relationship. His love language is touch. So he says, nope, I wouldn't be able to do that. But this stirred you up a little bit, it sounds like. So take it from there. Let me know what happened with you.
Yeah, so for whatever reason, I took that as a challenge. He and I had never really interacted before, just listening to each other in the space. And when he said that, I thought to myself, okay, challenge accepted. And so I think after he said, no, I never would, I replied with a remark, something like, I'll see you when you get here. Or we'll see how you feel about that once we're together. And that's kind of how it all started. I wasn't really taking anything serious with him, and I don't think he was with me either. But especially since we were just conversating in such a public space, it wasn't until we started chatting with each other in the back channel, exchanged phone numbers, having more intimate and real conversations that the tide started to change.
And what did you notice about Derek? What were you noticing about yourself as far as how am I feeling with him? And what were you noticing about him as far as what I'm really starting to like?
It's so hard to find authentic people. I feel like now, today, especially with the crisis that we've gone through and being whatever person that you want to be in a social media platform. And he just had a strong sense of authenticity to me. And I'm very much a woman. I've done quite well for myself. I have I'm not rich, but I live quite comfortably and live a nice life. And I was very female dominant, probably exuding masculine energy and very strong-minded of I don't need a man in my life. I don't need anyone. And he saw right through all of that and began to just ask me questions and break down my walls and barriers in ways that no one else that I had ever met before was able to do.
Okay, so what you were noticing about yourself is that this guy's breaking down my walls, like it's something about him. Okay.
Yes.
And then Derek, what about you? So when you guys are getting an opportunity to speak now on what Kennedy said is the back channel, and you guys are having a bit more intimate conversations, what were you noticing about yourself, and also what were you noticing about Kennedy at this point?
Well, for me, like she say, I was just able to be myself. Like I didn't have to put on a front. And as far as with her, the thing that I loved was her articulation. I love a woman that can speak her mind, because that for me that's always been hard to find. It's usually I find people that want to speak after the fact, not be proactive in let's get it done type deal, versus okay, now this happened, now let's talk about it, versus let's preemptively avoid this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what you were noticing about yourself is that you could be yourself as well with her, and also you like the way she could articulate herself. It's important for you. And I think number one for you is that she could speak her mind. For me, that felt like for me when you said that, it was a lot of energy behind that. And so I probably want to go back to that here shortly. But Kennedy, this question is for you. What is the struggle? Where are you guys now?
We almost spent nearly every weekend together because of the energy between us. And so the distance is now our struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were hoping to maybe try to solve or close that gap. And sometimes life just throws things in the way that prevent that. And so looking forward at what that looks like of the sustainability, I think is probably one of our biggest struggles right now. We're still learning and growing with each other, getting to know each other. And some of the ways that I guess if I'm just being completely candid, sometimes I think that his responses and his reactions show a bit of a lack of emotional intelligence. And so just trying to find ways to get him to recognize that there's a different way to respond when he's frustrated with me or when he's angry with me. It doesn't like something that I say. I think for whatever reason in his life, in his past, he's accustomed to shutting down or just completely walking away from an uncomfortable situation. And now that you've chosen to be in this relationship, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you're talking about, you're noticing some of the struggle is that when there is a conversation, maybe that,
Mm-hmm.
and this is how we explain it as a therapist, is that we're reacting instead of responding.
Yes.
And reacting could be that shutting down, throwing up walls, lashing out.
Yes.
And with Derek is that in these moments, he shuts down.
Yes.
And so, Derek, in your opinion, just your opinion, what are the struggles? What's happening?
Well, for me, I don't shut down. It's just that, like in the moment of conversation, she wants an answer right then that very exact instant. And I'm pondering so I don't dig myself into a hole and just, like she says, be more reactionary. And I'm trying to, give her what she wants as far as an answer without putting my foot in my mouth, so to speak. So she takes it for me shutting down when I'm just actually just thinking.
Okay.
Go back. That's not always true of what I'm talking about, though. So, for instance, this morning I feel like we were being jovial with each other, and it was later on, now that we've talked about it, he let me know it was an inappropriate time. But I felt like I was just being jovial with him, and he took it the wrong way. And so he just hung up the phone in my face and stopped talking to me. But, and that's what I mean by when I'm saying he's shutting down. Not that I'm not giving him pause or moments to reflect and come up with answers of what he wants to say, but he just, he doesn't react. He's overly reactive, I should say. And he won't respond. He won't talk. He doesn't want me to touch him. He just wants to be in his feelings. Now, what I can say that has gotten better is he comes out of it and we're able to have a conversation now, but that also took weeks to get to that point.
Well, I have a question though for you guys, because the love story, right, that I heard from you earlier is that Derek, you were someone who was very authentic and someone who apparently could communicate very well. And that you, Kennedy, were also someone who could kind of curate a relationship where Derek felt comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And where did those two guys go? The guys that could be authentic, that could make the other person feel comfortable, where you guys could talk and really enjoy each other, and you guys could be yourself with each other. How did that change? Where did those guys go? And why are they no longer here? Why do we have now a woman and a man who's shutting down and even getting to a point of saying, don't touch me? How do we get here?
Do you want to respond to that, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
No, actually, I would like to start with Derek. Derek is very uncomfortable at the moment, and so going on. And so, and the reason I want to start with you is because I feel like that there's something happening. I won't lie to you. I feel like there's a question that I need to ask you.
Okay.
I want to know, in the past, when you felt unsafe, like I'm about to say something that's going to really get me into some deep trouble, or I'm going to do something where someone's going to be really upset with me, where something bad is going to happen, or I'm going to do something and someone's going to think it's bad and they'll get angry with me. When you were younger and those things would happen, how did you cope? What'd you do?
But do something. Well, I don't think I really thought that much in advance. It was just more like, there's an issue. This is what I propose as the solution. Let's do it.
And so what age are we talking about? So you're talking about
that's
what, if you would kind of
till now. That's just how I've handled things. That's every age, even now.
And so, and you're saying that even when you were younger, that's kind of how you dealt.
Yes.
So give me an example of that. So let's say 15-year-old Derek. Let's start with him.
Okay.
How would he deal with these situations where he didn't really feel safe. I'm going to either say something that's going to upset someone or something is going to happen and I don't know what to do about it. 15-year-old Derek, can you give me one experience that stands out in your head right now as I'm asking you this question?
Well, I would either extinguish the relationship or bite my tongue or say it. It's like one of those three reactions.
Okay. What is the experience? Like what experience stands out in your head where you had to either extinguish the relationship or bite your tongue? Who are we talking about? Is it a mom, dad, sisters, 15-year-old Derek? What's the experience?
Well, no, there would be relationships.
At like relationships when you're 15?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you found yourself doing the exact same thing. You would extinguish the relationship or you would just bite your tongue?
Yeah.
And then, so going back even younger, where do you think you picked that up from? Did you learn to either end the relationship or just shut down?
Probably just either not really having great relationships with my family is probably the root. And maybe from my mother, because it's either her way or no way, and that's kind of where I got there from.
Well, and it's interesting, and thank you for sharing that. I have a Black male client, and he explained that, and he's like 40 years old at this point, but he explained that he was raised with all women, being his mother and sisters and aunties, and anytime he would walk into the house and he'd have an idea, they'd shoot it down. Like they'd go, "You're so stupid. Like, why would you even come up with, like, we don't want to hear it." And he said that happened so much. What he decided to do was that he was going to build all the facts. He was going to, get enough facts, right? So when he go back to his mom and aunties and sisters, and he'd say, "This is what I want to do," or he was looking for support, he would also come with all the facts, right? Because he felt like that was the best way to defend himself, especially with women. And so that's what he decided to do. But he became very argumentative because I got to give all the facts because women, they don't trust me. And women, they won't support me. And women don't necessarily respect who I am. And so I have to come with all these facts. And so as a married man, Kennedy, what do you think that looked like when he would go to his wife and say, "Hey, these are my thoughts," and then she'd say, "I'm not really sure." Same behavior, all the facts. He'd become very argumentative because you are a woman, and my cognitive schema, which is kind of my core belief that I hold in my body, is that you don't respect me. No women respect me. No women ever have respected me. So when I'm with the woman, I've learned to protect myself with facts. I got to give her all the facts. And so I'm just giving you an example because this kind of is what sits in the room with us right now. I feel like you and he would have a lot in common, but what are your thoughts after hearing me say that? What are your thoughts?
I think you're right on point. I think he's had things happen in his past, and he's not accustomed to, someone having a difference of opinion with him. But the difference of opinion with him doesn't mean that I'm your enemy and I'm striking against you.
Do you think, Kennedy, that it's my theory, right? It's my theory that a man who has had issues with his mother and that could potentially have issues life. Derek, you've heard me explain this other male client. What are your thoughts? Any similarities? Could you?
Yeah, there's some similarities. I was raised by a bunch of women, and I say that emphatically. I say they're powerful women. I say they raised me to be the man that they wanted. However, in that, they never really taught me how to like deal with a woman.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it was just, be strong, know how to provide, know how to fix things, know how to solve problems. You know what I mean? It was never how do you interact.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're right, and I agree, because I primarily work with men, and I hear that quite a bit. And you are a Black man, and I hear it from other Black men, but also I hear it from all men. But they never taught me how to deal with the woman. I think that's profound. They never taught me how to deal with the woman. And would you say, Derek, that kind of sits in the middle of relationships, not just with Kennedy, but relationships that you had, is this fact that all the women in my life, they taught me a lot, but what they didn't do is teach me how to kind of be the woman or deal with the woman.
Exactly.
So if that's the case, how do you think that fact shows up in this relationship?
How it shows up every other weekend. I mean, when it's not okay. So, like, just being from my background, like, another thing is like a little mantra that was drilled into my head is we don't chase, we replace. So when we have issues, it's like, fuck it, get another one type shit instead of, let's work this out. And as far as something like I just got from my little brother talking to him, I wasn't willing to change for her. And that to me is probably my biggest as far as my side of conflict. If we have any. Yeah, thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. Having this conversation with you right now reminds me a lot of the guys that I work with. They are just as handsome as you are a very handsome man. I don't know you, but I've gotten an opportunity to speak with you, and they are just as intelligent as you are, just as successful as you are. But yet, what I find in session with these guys is that and some of them are older than me, some of them are younger. But what I find is that the role that I play with them, that I hold in the experience with them, is their mother. And I say that in this way, where I, as a female, that they say, I'm going to finally trust another Black female in this situation. And I'm going to try to trust her. And I'm going to spend some intimate time with her. And me, as the Black woman, then I understand what's happening. And so I kind of move into the role where I really honor the fact that they're going to try it again. with the Black woman. And I want to create a corrective experience where the guy that I was talking about earlier, that when he brings to me an idea, that I don't discourage him, or that when he starts a new relationship, like he is now, he's starting a new relationship, that he and I learn how to be with that woman. We talk about it. We, like you said, that, all these women in my life, but no one taught me how to deal with a woman. And so I find myself kind of in that position. And that's a part of therapy. My therapy is that I find myself having to be that mother. And I don't, I enjoy it. I love it. But it's one of those things that has been very emotional for me, because I didn't know our Black men were so hurt by our Black women. What are your thoughts about that, Derek?
It's accurate. And it just makes me reflect on a lot of things. And even like advice I've given to people, just, like with the hurt people. And when you bring it back, like to the core essence of why I'm behaving the way I am, it's kind of, it's evident, but it's crazy. It's crazy. I would have probably blamed this on a past relationship, as far as like with a girlfriend, versus going further back to mom. Yeah. So it's eye-opening, to say the least.
It is eye-opening, and not just for you. It's always eye-opening for me. And I think that's why I think therapy is so important to our community, because we're behaving and we're doing our best to maneuver through these relationships. But it's so much at the core of us, Kennedy, where it was kind of put in us at very young ages, and it grew up with us, in a sense that as we get older, so did the scars and the traumas, the pains. And so you can just imagine that a lot of the trauma and all the things that we experienced are full grown now. And somehow they do find their way into our relationships. Kennedy, as you sit here and you hear Derek, he said this is very eye-opening for him, that he would have probably said, I would have to go back to a previous relationship and kind of set the blame there. As you're sitting here and listening to Derek and I talk, what are your thoughts?
That it's almost confirmation for me, because it would have been so easy after the second or third time that he reacted in that way to just walk away. But I kept seeing something more in him, and that and feeling or assuming and thinking, that if he could just recognize this hurt and see it and be able to process and deal with it, then in all of the other great moments that we do have together, and the reason why I'm so crazy about him and want this relationship, it's almost like confirmation that, yeah, it's there.
So you spend time on social media, and I'm sure you heard us in the Black community attempting to have conversations about relationships and the conflict and the disdain that tends to be very present in those conversations. When you look at a situation like this, where you're saying as a woman, I'm noticing something, but I'm not ready to give up because I'm thinking about the other moments that are really good. What do we do as women in situations like this? Because we know that our Black men, a lot of them have these experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that as we hear these conversations on social media, I think we're really dealing with a lot of what we're talking about right now. But what do we do as Black women in relationships that have these struggles? What's your opinion?
I think you really need to get to know the person that you're with prior to investing and falling for them. I've had conversations in the social media platform where I feel like sometimes as Black women, we give our all and we stand by our man and we hold them down in situations that are unhealthy and unsafe. But with Derek, he makes me feel safe, despite the fact that when he falls into these moments, he makes me feel safe. He pours and has poured so much into me that when we have these moments of debit, I've recognized enough about his character to know it was worth more to work through what was going on than to just turn around and think to save myself and walk away. He and when I say protected and safe, I mean both emotionally and physically. It hadn't escalated to a point to where I felt like, oh, I need to just, let him be because this is so detrimental and just save myself. I am a very selfless person and love selflessly as well. And I think we need to be able to recognize in ourselves when that comes to the cost of self and when it is worth, having a stick to itiveness to it. I mean, even now, I know it's very hard for him and he's being very vulnerable because of, he's crying and emotion that he's showing. And for Black men, it's not easy to show that in such a in a way with you with a stranger,
Safety is a word that you said a couple of times, and it's making me think of a situation. I had a couple, and it was quite similar, and he just kept telling her that, I just don't know how to do it, what you're asking me to do. And he'd shut down. He'd just go, I'm just going to shut down, because he'd say that, but then she would demand, well, just learn how to do it. I mean, you're grown, you're an adult, just learn. Just, if you love me, you'll do this. And so I remember watching these guys try to have this conversation in my office, and I'm watching him be very vulnerable in this moment with me. I'm talking to him, and he's crying. He's saying, I just keep telling her, Renee, and I look over to her, and she's like, well, but what about me? Right? I mean, so what am I? How am I supposed to feel if you're not showing me love when I need it, and you're not making me feel happy, and you're not making me feel good? And that's why I say the things to you that I say. And then she goes into some of the things that she said and some of the names that she's called them. And so I finally just had to tell her, Kennedy, I said, you know what? I'm starting to realize something. I'm realizing that it's not safe with you. He's not safe with you? Because he's already explained to you that this is the exact same situation that he had with his grandma when he was growing up, as she raised him. And somehow you've set up the same environment where when he doesn't know how to do something, he gets called a name.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that he won't communicate, because he knows how to communicate, but it's not safe with you. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that's very, very spot on what I was trying to say about being able to recognize how we're dealing with our partners as well as recognize our reactions within ourselves. When he has these moments, I guess metaphorically, what I would say, it's like when you're dealing with a wild horse that is used to being out on the plains and they start bucking and thrashing and trying to get rid of you. The best way to get them to calm down is you just sit calmly. You just sit right there in front of them, you let them get it out, and you don't respond, and you sit calmly. Respect is a huge thing for me. So the name calling, the attacking, the accusatory tones, and he and I had a very candid conversation about it early on, kind of setting the stage that these things will not be tolerated. And he's never done that to me, and I've never done that to him. But I do think as Black women, that when you recognize that you have someone that is just hurting, and you're able to recognize that their hurt is not about you, don't attack them. Just sit quietly and give them the space and the opportunity to come back to you in a place where they can speak and try to articulate what it is that they're dealing with and that they're going through and why they're acting the way that they do. Mm-hmm. And
let me stop you there, because I think that's I want to have something to say about that. Remembering why they're acting the way they are. Mm-hmm. I think that's key, because in a moment, like a hot moment where we're having an argument.
Yeah.
That there's a reason why he responds this way.
Right.
And it's not because of me.
Right.
Right. It's not like he's not responding out of the fact that he doesn't love me or that he doesn't care for me.
Right.
Because I think if we get that in our mind, that he's reacting because he doesn't love me.
Yes.
Then that's where it's going to escalate, versus, like you said, and I totally agree, you have to remember why he's acting this way right now. And I'm not saying that we have to go, well, we have to let them just kind of do this, and we have to, but when we're building, we're trying to figure it out. We have to remember some things. And one of those things would be, I do have a man that's hurting. Mm-hmm. And out of the hurt, sometimes this is how he responds or reacts. And so then we can have a conversation based on that sounds like, babe, I get it.
Right.
I remember that this is what you told me. This is how you react when you're hurt.
Right.
What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do right now? Because I won't lie, I am frustrated. But I know this is not about me.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do? And it sounds like you found a way to do that with Derek on some level. And another thing I was thinking about was another Black guy that I worked with, Derek, that had come to me because his fiance was wanting to leave. He had really bad behavior, down to the point where he would call her a bitch sometimes. And he hated it. He said, I hate when I do it, but it's just in those moments, like I just get furious. And so he and I had a talk after a few sessions. We had a talk, and I asked him the same exact thing. Take me back to 6-year-old you, because I want to see something, and better yet, I want you to see something. Is what I told him. And so he tells me the story of a mother who had a lot of kids, maybe 10, I think, and he was the youngest. And he was, I think the youngest child before him was maybe 10 or 15 years older. So he was almost kind of raised as the only child. But he had the same situations as the other client I was telling you about. He was always looked over, right? And he had all these parents, right? Because he had all these older siblings who wanted to parent him. And so he would want to do things and they'd go, no, that's stupid. I don't think you need to do it. And he'd go, well, just support me. And they'd go, no, because we think it's stupid, you know? So after so many experiences, the 6-year-old in him was angry because why can't I do anything right? Why can't I do something and people support me? So remember we were talking about all of the hurt and pains that tend to grow up with us. Well, it did. So this guy got into this relationship, loved this woman. He loved her, she loved him. But what do you think happened when he would come up with a business idea? And then she'd say, I don't think that's a good idea. It triggered that pain quickly. And he'd yell and he'd scream and he'd go, why can't you ever support me? Like, why do you have to put down everything why am I not good enough for people to support? Now, was it the adult him talking? No, it was a 6-year-old. Because once again, I'm not good enough to support. Mm-hmm. We talked about the way he coped when he was 6. He'd lose it because he was the youngest. So he would just go on a rage. He'd lash out at his brothers and sisters and call them nasty names and fight. It's the same type of way he was behaving with his fiance. And so what I remember he and I having to talk about, Derek, is you got to get little man under control because he's going to show up when he's triggered and he feels like people don't support him. He's going to show up. And he's going to show out. And then you're going to have to do what we call reparent. And reparent is the adult you saying to the 6-year-old you, that's not what's happening. She's not saying that you're not worthy. And she's not saying that you're not important. It's not what's happening. And he would have to do that quite often because whenever that was triggered, that people don't want to support me, he went to his default behaviors, which is to protect himself and lash out. But he would have to do exactly what I'm saying, which is that reparenting is a technique that we use. And so I'm wondering, with you, Derek, that because you've done a really good job at saying, hey, wait a minute, I think this is eye-opening for me. I think I'm seeing something. Do you think in moments when Kennedy is saying, hey, let's do this or let's do that, I want to have a conversation about this, and the 6-year-old and you stands up and says, shut this shit down and shut it down now? That you can remind him, you don't need to do that anymore because she's wanting to hear from you. She really likes you. She really cares, and you can trust her. You don't have to fight her. It's going to be your responsibility to do that. Kennedy's responsibility to let you do it. What are your thoughts, Derek, as you hear me say that?
Just confirmation, really. Because like with me, I know I'm not perfect. So it's like, I always try to work on myself. But, you know, it's easier when someone says, hey, that's the problem right there. Fix that shit right there. So that's what I appreciate about this. You know, that's because, like I say, I strive for perfection, and can't be perfect walking around fucked up.
None of us can. And I'll tell you that. I'm gonna tell you just like I tell my all the rest of the men that I work with, I think that you're beautiful. And what I mean by that is I love a man that's willing to grow. That's a high value man to me.
Yeah.
That says, I'm not saying I'm all fucked up, but I am saying that I've come from a place that has scarred me sometimes. I am saying that in order for me to be the best I want to be, I have to keep improving myself, and I have to sometimes reach outside of myself. And sometimes I'll cry, and sometimes I'll laugh, and sometimes I'll joke. But I'm gonna keep working, and I think it's beautiful. And we'll get ready to wrap it up here shortly, but I wanna kind of go back to the beginning.
Mm.
A couple in struggle. I know you probably had, and maybe I'll ask you, I don't know what your views were about how does a therapist have a conversation with a couple that's in struggle? You had your ideas, but now as we sit here, having the actual conversation with the therapist and a couple in struggle, what are your thoughts? What are your views of the experience that we've shared?
Okay.
I think it's something that is really needed and warranted, especially in our community, amongst our couples and us as individuals. A lot of times it's hard for us to see us because we are so set on being right, and it's hard to give up the right to be right.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that it helps us to articulate feelings that we're going through. Sometimes we know that the feeling is there. We just don't know how to say what it is. And I think with Derek, he could recognize in himself that something was going on there. And it's easy to just pin it on, well, every woman before you was no good, so you're just going to be the exact same way, as opposed to where you were able to kind of show him that this went a little bit deeper and then give the tools to how to cope with that. And I know for sure that I have my own faults and issues and deep seated things that are going on with myself as well. But you can't get to a place to work on those things and be the best versions of yourselves and be the best versions for with each other without someone on the outside to help.
Mm-hmm. And I would go as far as saying, with women who I've worked with kind of in your situation where you say, I also have these things, right? Because I also come from a place and I did not make it out of that place without some scarring, without some pain.
Mm-hmm.
But yet I am a woman who loves this man and I want this to work. Although we are a couple in struggle, I want it to work. And what I have to remind the women to do as he is maybe reparenting, and we're giving him that space, we're giving him time to walk off and reparent. And so he can say to himself, that's not what's happening. While he's doing that, then the women in these situations need to dismantle the intent, which means that we'll build up quickly that he's intending to do something to me. He's trying to hurt me, trying to stay away from me, right? But if we are doing that and we're building up all these stories and all the intent, we're going to go to the conversation with the intent that you're trying to do something to me and I don't know why you're doing it, versus taking a moment to dismantle the intent And
Yeah.
you say exactly what you said earlier. I'm remembering something about this guy that I love. He has pain. And I got to remember that. That's what's happening in this moment. Right? Because if
Right.
not, then you will inadvertently go to the conversation or the argument with that story of this is about me. This is about you doing something to me when it's not. Because as we sit here, and I think we've done a really good job of kind of unfolding this thing. What lies in the middle is not a man that's trying to escape his woman, trying to get away from her, shut down on her. If we really take a moment to just look at the core, then we know that's not the story at all. Now, Derek, for you, I know that you probably had your ideas about what is this going to be like talking to a therapist about our relationship issues. But as we sit here now, we've actually had a conversation. What are your thoughts?
Well, as previously stated, I believe this is a dire need in our community. It's just because of the questions that you ask, and I'm able to provide my own answers because of those questions. It's the real sauce, so to speak, because I mean, without that reflection, I mean, you're in peril. You know what I mean? And it would be just a perpetual situation at that point. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Guys, what do we need to do in the Black community as far as relationships, just after we've had our experience? Let me ask you first, Derek. You and I had a moment, and I really appreciate it. I really appreciate being able to have this conversation with you, and where you allowed yourself to be vulnerable, and even cry with me. I'll always honor that. We want to see more Black men take the risk that you've taken today. What do we need to be as Black therapists for you guys? When you walk through our doors, what do we need to be? What do you feel like I offered so that we can let other Black therapists know, or even just therapists in general know, when I walk through the door, this is what I need from you in order for me to feel safe as a client with you?
Just be welcoming, and respect the person. That's pretty much it. Respect their thoughts, because I mean, there's nothing like feeling that your thoughts have no value. Like that sucks. So that, to me, that, and you do that. So I would just keep doing what you're doing.
Okay. Kennedy, what about you? We need more African American women also going to therapy. What do we need to be as therapists for you guys when you walk in, to make you feel safe enough to open up? Because you also have been very vulnerable today. And so what's necessary? What do we need?
I think it's very necessary to the way you approached when you recognize one of the hurts, to not be judgmental. As Black women, it is so easy to call on our friends and say, here's the issue that I'm having with the man that I love and I care about. And then they just jump on that bandwagon of, oh, you need to leave. He ain't no good. You deserve better. They start feeding into all this negativity. And maybe in the instant moment, you feel that exact same way. But also on the inside, it's not what you wanted. You weren't looking for someone to beat him up and tear him down. You just wanted someone to listen and to understand that here's this struggle. And so being able to talk to a woman that can say, okay, I hear what you're saying about what's going on between you two. Let's break that down and talk about how you respond and how that makes you feel, as opposed to just being this cheerleader of negativity and, falling into this detrimental cycle that I feel like we as Black women go through. Because um, all it does is feed that energy back into me if that was what I was looking for and what I wanted. And then he and I continue in this negative space and cycle as well. So,
So I think what I heard from you guys is we as therapists need to be non-judgmental
yes.
listeners. And what you said, Derek, was respect my thoughts. And I think that's dynamic. I will be wrapping up here shortly, but I want to open up for you guys to ask questions, if you have any questions. And I also want to, because it's such a hot topic, I just want to get your views on how do we help the Black community as relates to relationships? What do we need, just based on y'all's opinion? Maybe we'll start there, and then at the end, you guys can ask questions if you want. But what do you think we need, Kennedy? What do we need to rectify? What's the solution? What's the resolve for what's happening in the Black community as far as the relationship goes?
I think we are the new matriarchs and patriarchs of our generation as we enter into 40s plus. And so the older ideals and mantras of we don't put our business out, we don't share what's going on, everything just stays within us and you just suck it up and keep pushing. And we have to do away with that now. There's just so much trauma and mental trauma and issues that we have gone through. And not that I don't think anyone had nefarious intent when these things happened. We were just all growing up and living life the best way we know how. But now that you know better, do better. Now that you know that there is help and there are things and resources and people out there, don't be afraid to use them. Don't be afraid when you recognize in someone that they have a genuine investment in what it is that they do and they genuinely want to help. Then share your story with that person and allow them to help, and then share it with others around you when you hear it and recognize it to go get help. Be conduits of, I guess, getting the word out there. Mental health is not bad. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean that you need to be committed. You just need someone to talk to and to help you work through things.
So I'm so glad you said that, because this really is although you guys are not my client, but this really is kind of what therapy is. It's you get an opportunity to sit with someone that's kind of sitting on the outside looking in. And we're not saying that you're not doing something right. We're not going to be the rulers of your lives and pinpoint everything that you're doing. We're gonna take a look around in your lives together. I explained to in my other I think my first podcast that what it feels like happens in therapy, because it's not about you being crazy. It's really, for me, it's kind of like going up to the attic with the clients and taking a look around at all that's been stored up in here and here in our minds. And we're just taking a look around. Now, some of the stuff, it doesn't, it's not important. We don't really have to, really look into it. But as we continue to look around, then we might hit that one box.
Yeah.
And then you go, here it is. And then you and the therapist have to be kind of on one accord. Do we open this box?
Yeah.
We're ready to go there. Right. And then we open the box and then we start to process how we feel and what we see. But it's not about you being crazy. It's just like this. It's the exact same experience we all shared today. So I'm so glad that you said that. Derek, how would you answer that? What do we need to do in your opinion? Black community relationships, what's happening? What's the resolve?
Education. We need to be educated. Education is the main fundamental of every building block. Like, we have to be educated on how to interact with each other. We don't have that. We were just grouped and hoarded together and told what to do. So we lost a layer of our civility going through that time. So that's what we need to regain.
Wow. You almost took me to a place there, Derek, but I got to stay focused because that's going into my research that I'm doing. But I think you just hit it. I really do. But hopefully after I finish the research, the findings will be just that. Right. And then we have somewhere we can go. We go, okay, this is the problem right here. So let's start putting in the work. But questions. I want you guys to have an opportunity to ask questions about whatever the process, the experience we've shared, anything that was said, or just comments. I'm gonna turn it over to you guys. Kennedy, what about any comments or questions?
I definitely appreciate you taking time out to, invest in us and help us work through, coach us through something that we're dealing with. I just found so much value in you and the way that we found each other and the conversations that we've had. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. A question that I would have, I guess, would be just from the outside looking in of what you've heard so much of us so far in this space and in other spaces, what it is that you see and maybe what is one tool that we could go back to help us in our relationship.
Well, you actually said it. You got to remember what's happening without telling yourself another story. Right? So in a moment where that maybe Derek is kind of found himself in a situation where he doesn't know how to cope with it. I think it'd be genius, right, to go, hey, I don't really know what to do with this. Right. And then he gets to say that, and then you can honor that. And then remember what's happening in that moment. That while he's doing his part, which is reminding himself that that's not what Kennedy's doing. She's not trying to shut me down. She doesn't think I'm unimportant. Reparenting himself in that moment. You honor that and you walk away what we call self-regulation is what you would need to be doing. And that's you kind of, when you get upset and you can feel the horns coming out and the smoke about to come out your nose, you regulate yourself and you go, wait a minute, I need to remember something. It's not about him telling me that something's wrong with me. Therefore he's shutting down on me. That's not what's happening. And so I'm going to stay quiet until I feel myself get centered again, until I've gotten out of my own story. Right? I'm going to stay quiet until I regulate myself, and then I'm going to go and have the talk. I want the conversation to sound like, in that experience with you, Derek, this is what it felt like. Versus, when you do that, you piss me off. And I'm doing it on purpose. And I don't know why you're doing it, but you know how it makes me feel. I want you to stop. Right? So I think that remembering what's happening allows us to have a different conversation. So I'm not saying you don't go and express your feelings, but you don't go with all this intent that he's doing something. I go only after I've regulated myself and I remembered that, wait a minute, that's not what's happening. He's not intending. He loves me. He cares for me. He's not intending to hurt me. But I do want him to know, in this experience, this is what it feels like. So I'm going to own my own feeling. I'm going to own my own experience, because I don't know if that's how he experienced it, but I do want to share with him how I experienced it. So Derek, when that happened, this is what I experienced. At that point, because now Derek knows to go off and he's going to be verbal and he's going to tell you, I don't know what to do with this right now. And when he walks away and he says, I don't know what to do with it just yet, but give me some time. Now, when he walks away, it's not a shutdown more than it is, let me create some space so I can go and do my work. And my work is reparenting. My work is getting the smoke cleared, right? And I want to make sure I've regulated too by telling myself that it's not what Kennedy's trying to do. She loves me. She cares for me, right? She's not telling me that I'm unimportant or that I'm stupid or anything negative. That's not what she's doing. So when couples learn to do that, dismantling intent, regulate, which means that I'm not going to talk and have those conversations when I have all this in my body going on. I'm going to wait, because it's my responsibility, not his, not hers, to calm it down. It's my responsibility. So I'm going to walk away, calm, regulate, tell myself really what's happening. Like you said, remember what's going on. And then, and only then, will I go to the conversation. But when someone says to the other, I don't know how to do it, I'm going to respect that. I'm going to let them have that moment, because now I know and I trust that in the moment when that person walks away, they're doing exactly what they know they need to be. They're doing the work, that internal work. So we can come back together and have more effective conversation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Comments, questions?
Thank you. Yeah, because I was struggling. Just being honest. It's crazy. But thank you.
You're welcome. And I could see the struggle. One of my superpowers that I'm so glad God has given me is the gift of intuition. So I can feel sometimes what's happening, the struggle, right? And that's why I wanted to have that conversation with you. But I'm so glad that you were so willing and so open, because I think a lot of people, especially men, will learn how to do the same. So I thank you as well.
No worries.
Any other comments or questions before we end? And maybe, this may be what we'll do is let you guys maybe practice and then bring you back. See how,
Right.
and I'm not saying you guys have to be perfect coming back, but what does it look like when we got a bit of tools, when we got something we can try to use,
Right.
What does it look like? And so maybe if you guys are open to that, we can make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Non-judgmental is what you guys said. Be a good listener. Respect my thoughts. I love that. Those are all the things that we as Black therapists need to be when you guys walk into our office, because we want you guys there. We want to see more of our African-American men and women in session. When a couple is in struggle, is what we talked about today. You guys were phenomenal. And I really appreciate you both being so vulnerable and so open. And just know that when you guys want to come back, you're always welcome. Definitely open to have the conversation again. So I am Renee Greer, psychotherapist in Texas, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.